Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, the biggest union in the state is pointedly declining to endorse Joe Biden. The state Democratic Party chair is furious, and Democratic members of Congress are begging Biden to reconsider. The media is finally waking up to the fact that Joe Biden is facing utter disaster in the state of New Hampshire, an early primary state mess entirely of his own making. Because in attempting to snub and demote the Granite State, he may actually be handing their voters a club to punish him and to elevate his rivals. He has basically scheduled an early loss for himself in this crucial state. Now, over the past few days, multiple mainstream outlets have published panic reports about how Marianne or Bobby Kennedy Jr. could end up with the win in New Hampshire. But of course, in typical fashion, these reports are slathered with layers of cope and spin about how losing an early state, obviously that's not going to matter. Pissing off voters in a swing state, that's no big deal. And that Biden is in no way whatsoever vulnerable in this primary. The truth, of course, is a lot more complex. You got the oldest president in history, you got a base dying for alternatives. You're effectively ceding an early state to one of your rivals. That sounds like trouble. In spite of the media's anxious assurances that this is all no big deal and really means nothing, methinks they doth protest too much. So here is the backstory. New Hampshire voters have never been too keen on this current president. During his 2008 run, he was polling so miserably in the state that he withdrew before voters could actually render a verdict. In 2020, you will recall, he finished in a humiliating 5th place behind Bernie, Pete, Amy Klobuchar, and even Elizabeth Warren. So, in an attempt to deny New Hampshire voters a chance to hand the president yet another poor result, he and the DNC collaborated to strip them of their first primary positioning in the Democratic primaries. Instead, they gave South Carolina the top spot, a state where Biden can depend on Jim Clyburn rather than his own appeal, and where Democrats can pretend that their real concern is diverse representation rather than an outright rigging of the democratic process. Of course, the truth is so obvious that some top Democrats, they don't even deny it. Listen to what Leah Daughtry, a longtime top DNC official and Rules Committee member, recently admitted to New York Times reporter Ested Herndon.
How do we separate those reasons from the politics of it? Because at the same time, Iowa, New Hampshire, states Joe Biden did bad in. South Carolina is a state he did well in. Couldn't this also be read as a president rewarding a state or prioritizing a state that serves his political interests?
And? Okay, I don't have a problem with that. He's the president. He's the head of the party. So he gets to make the decisions that are best for the party. Whether his personal interests played a role, it aligned with our objectives, which is to shake up this system to ensure that the base of your party, who shows up every single cycle for you, have an early say.
That's interesting, because sometimes I've been asking folks that question. They've been acting like politics is just not involved to this.
We're a political party.
That this is just about representation. It was just about, and so I appreciate you saying that, because I feel like it has to be political.
Well, I mean, this is the Democratic Party. We are political. Every decision we make is political. So I think, to say that it's not is kind of disingenuous.
Yeah.
I mean, I kind of appreciate the honesty here. So they fixed it up perfect for Biden, right? Wrapped it in some identity, virtue signaling. Good to go, right? Not quite. First of all, South Carolina is not anywhere close to being a competitive state for the general election, while New Hampshire is a perennial swing state that Donald Trump has come very close to winning. So if you're all the fascists are at the door and democracy's on the line and we must do absolutely everything to stop them, pissing off the entirety of a vital battleground state, that seems like a pretty bad idea. But more immediately for Biden, it has created a political quandary because New Hampshire is not planning to back down from their first-in-the-nation status. And actually, they can't back down, even if they wanted to. A state law requires New Hampshire to go first, and since the state is right now controlled by Republicans, they have no desire to help Joe Biden out of his little jam here. So he can put his name on the ballot and effectively abandon his plan to have South Carolina go first. Not to mention, he'll then be in an actual competition in a state that is furious with him. Or he can not put his name on the ballot and let Bobby Kennedy Jr. or Marianne win and pray that his media allies effectively convince everyone that this is inconsequential and doesn't matter whatsoever. Or he can do a low-key write-in campaign, which carries a huge amount of risk because then he is competing with all the risk and potential embarrassment, but he's put himself at a major disadvantage by not actually having his name appear on the ballot. In a sign of the mounting political troubles, the state's largest union, as I alluded to earlier, just issued a statement pointedly declaring they are not endorsing Biden and also demanding an actually democratic process. They say, after careful consideration, we are not endorsing Joe Biden for re-election in the presidential race at this time. Following a robust analysis of the current political landscape, we have come to the conclusion that our members and New Hampshire voters deserve a competitive Democratic primary. Couple this with Democratic members of Congress hitting the panic button, and the media was actually forced to cover it. Politico's got an article out headlined Biden's New Hampshire Mess. NBC News has a similar piece headlined Why Biden May Have to Forfeit the First Contest in His Re-Election Bid to Marianne Williamson or RFK Jr. But while they admit the issue, both outlets, of course, go out of their way to insert a million Biden-approved caveats about how this is all no big deal. NBC characterizes Bobby Kennedy and Marianne as, quote, fringe rivals, in spite of the fact Bobby Kennedy is hitting 20% in polls. Both have polled in double digits. The article goes on to describe a potential Biden loss there as inconsequential, quotes Democrats hand-wringing not about the two candidates in double digits already in the race, but about potential, quote, big-name Democrats who might decide to jump in. Well, guys, you can relax. No elite-approved candidate is going to primary Biden. Politico's coverage is, if anything, even worse. They compare Kennedy and Williamson to the convicted felon who won 41% against Obama in West Virginia in 2012, as if an obscure federal inmate is remotely similar to two nationally known figures, one of whom hails from the most famous political family in the entire country, and as if the West Virginia primary holds nearly the significance as the New Hampshire primary does. As if that's not enough, they explicitly, in this article, assert that Biden's nomination is in no danger and that losing this primary is totally fine and cool. They write, quote, either way, losing a primary that doesn't actually count for anything isn't a problem, nor are Kennedy and Williamson a threat to the president's renomination, not by any stretch. This isn't an opinion piece, remember. It is a supposed journalist offering ironclad assurances that Biden faces no threat at all. Look, maybe, but guess what? Y'all been wrong about a whole lot. And by the way, it's not up to you to decide who is a threat and who is not, what's a big deal and what is not. That's up to the voters. Take a look at these latest primary polls from Emerson, courtesy of our friend Sagar here. Kennedy is actually outperforming DeSantis in these polls. Does the media say, oh, DeSantis isn't a threat? He's not serious. Marianne is outpolling every other Republican on the list. Do so-called journalists go out of their way to label Nikki Haley, Mike Pence, and co. fringe? Tim Scott is literally at 0%. Does the media feel the need to nervously guarantee its readers he isn't by any stretch a threat to Trump's nomination? Look, Biden is the favorite. There is no doubt about it. But when 70% of the country says they don't want him, no amount of media cope and propaganda should persuade you that he is not vulnerable, especially when he's not even capable, apparently, of campaigning. The media is doing all they can to cover for this man, to persuade everyone they have no other choice in the matter. If Biden's opponents are really so fringe, not a threat by any stretch in their language, then they should have no problem calling for debates so our president can show the nation why he deserves to be reelected. And this New Hampshire thing is a real problem, and I see this as an attempt by the media to get ahead of it. Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.